What's up, Barefoot Nation? This week I have a great project for you. We are turning a bare piece of turf into a beautiful small pondless waterfall that can fit in almost any size backyard. I guess unless it's a New York City balcony, but that's not technically a backyard. Without further ado, let's go! Alright guys, so with this project here, this is just going to be a small pondless waterfall. So you can see with this tank here is called an aqua basin. And so what you're going to want to keep in mind with this aqua basin is this panel, because that's going to be your access panel for when it's done. Now, the other thing with this site is that there are irrigation lines which are apparently about 2 feet off the patio. So if I just do my rough measurement, that means that I really need to be further out than here. But of course, I'm going to try and get this basin as close to the patio as possible. And then I'll have some gravel. But anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So you can see that I've marked out both the kind of edge of the basin, and I've also marked out the kind of about 1.5 or 2 feet off, because this, I know I've worked at this site, is clay soil, and so clay is going to come out in big chunks. And so to backfill this properly, I'm going to want to make sure that I have, now that might be a little bit of an extreme, but you know, kind of like past where that shovel is how much wider I'm going to actually make the hole. Just a quick check in here. You can see I've slid the basin off to the side, and now I'm just going to be starting to just dig that hole in along that square that I painted on the ground. All right, so the sod is mostly, well, the sod is entirely stripped off, and I've kind of dug around a little bit. I did do a test dig to find the main line for the irrigation. That's really important, but it's important too that you note that that's the main line. So I also have to be careful of the offshoots, which will probably be around here somewhere, and yeah, stuff like that. So I need to be careful still about irrigation lines, so obviously I don't want to hit those. So yeah, all of this decent topsoil I'm actually probably going to set to the side, because when I was doing the test dig, I found the subsoil, which is not sure if you guys will be able to see it, but it's rocky clay. So I want that to be at the very bottom of the waterfall, which will be kind of over here. So making progress slowly but surely. So popping out of the hole, you can see here that this is what's called a rough grade, or a rough kind of hole. And the reason for that is you can see that this, which is a perfect kind of squarish, rectangle, whatever, geometric shape, you want to have it be sitting totally flat and level with the bottom of the hole. In fact, I will be leveling it. My level is sitting around here somewhere, hopefully not at the bottom of that pile. Just kidding. I'm actually going to be using the tamper in not too long to kind of compact. It's not going to take a ton of compaction, because this soil is already pretty compacted, but regardless, it is necessary to use the spade to kind of carve out the bottom level, and then you tamp so that it's kind of perfect. Projects like this in my climate are going to take a little bit longer, because when the sun's out, it's actually pretty beautiful out. But as you can see, or as you saw from the last clip or two, the sun is now pretty low on the horizon, so it cools off pretty quick. If it were going to be rainy or any sort of adverse precipitation, or the pile were even to freeze, I would put a tarp over this and then secure it down with some of the junk that I've dug out of the hole. By the way, check this out. Like, this was buried in the ground, so I'm actually going to try and use that somewhere in the future. But yeah, you'd want to tarp this loose-ish soil just so that it doesn't get all mucky, or further mucky. All right, guys, I figured I would give you a rundown of the tools that I have at my disposal. All steel spade, which is going to be mostly for taking these edges and making them clean. The typical dig and shovel, which is actually best to be removing all the loose clods out of the hole. Trenching shovel has done a lot of the work, kind of more finer stuff, for like where you see this irrigation pipe. I don't want to be swinging a sledgehammer there, but really it's the sledge that, when you muster up enough energy, that's what's doing the majority of the work here.
Okay, so you can see that the hole is pretty well tamped. What you don't want to have happen is to skip out on this step or do sort of a half-assed job and then have the basin shift in the future, especially with fountainscapes. Another good thing to do is to cover the basin with some fabric so that you minimize the amount of dirt and sort of schmutz that you can, grind in. Not essential, but it definitely helps to keep the job site a little bit cleaner.
Quick break here. If you guys get value out of this content, be sure to smash that subscribe button and tap the bell to stay up to date on all things that happen, whether it's crazy water feature projects or small ones, plantings, house plants, you name it, it's all here. Anyway, without further ado, back to the video. So I did the thing where I kind of just got into go mode and didn't film as much as I should. So basically right now, the basin is set in the ground and more or less level. This is a pondless waterfall, and a rather small one at that. So I actually have this basin. It's what you need to do, especially for a fountain, is have it level, front to back and side to side. But in this case, I actually want a ever so slight pooling area. Now there's drainage holes in here that I'll fill with, maybe like number 3 cobble. So like a piece of gravel, slightly smaller, like this. So a piece of gravel like this, that's what I'll fill for the majority of it. But I want to have a ever so slight pooling area. Now it can be kind of ballsy to be doing that and kind of damming up the basin, because this is such a small body of water that you don't want to be doing too many tricks for extending the stream and shrinking the basin just because it is so small. Now, you'll notice this piece of fabric is really just here so that I can step on this, because as I backfill, that's the best way to do it, just like installing a skimmer box. I'll link that video in the description if you're interested. And the other thing too is, when I'm talking about it's like not level, I'm saying it's like a quarter bubble. So this isn't massively unlevel. So, for it to be level, all I have to do is raise this up maybe like a ½ inch, which this basin is kind of unstable, as you may or may not be able to see. So I can stand back here and backfill this corner, and then that will in turn, with some of these smaller soil particles, that will in turn material under this corner and therefore level it out. And really, that actually I still need this level on the basin as I backfill, because a very annoying situation, but it's happened before, is if you're careless with how you backfill, then you'll set it off majorly, and if it's majorly off level, that's not good.
All right, so here you can see a little bit of the soil work. You can actually see the upper pool that will house the spillway diffuser, and then also I'm starting to set some of the rocks. And the first thing I set, actually in this case, was the dry creek area where the irrigation was. So that also just sort of extends the look of the water feature out beyond it. So you can see that the liner is now set into place roughly. There's still a lot of work to be had as far as soil in some cases, and then you want to start with your rock work on top of the basin, and then you work towards the spillway, because the worst thing you can do creatively is to start rocking at the spillway and then work your way to the basin, because invariably you're going to sort of want to make changes. And if you install the spillway or the bulkhead first, then you won't be able to do that. So you can see here that I'm pointing to those thuja whipcords, which are some evergreens, interesting evergreens. And they are going to create a backdrop for this water feature that kind of make your eyes stop. I know it's kind of a mess to look at, but you can also see some preliminary rock work. So precisely what I was talking about earlier on, you can see that that top rock that has those various layers was placed, but it didn't end up working out because basically it didn't work out when I test ran it. So I have the ability in this case to take out that big rock, use it somewhere else, and not have the whole water feature need to be torn apart because I did it backwards. Also, as they say, dirty hands, clean money. Booyah. I got a little bit ahead of myself here, and I have to show you a few more details with liner.
Liner is down and about 90% done. I do need to take some more time and make my folds, but as you can see, for one, I've extended out past the basin with this dry creek sort of installation. And then now I have underneath my liner, layer of fabric. So fabric, liner, fabric. We want to cushion the liner as much as possible. These are granite boulders for the most part, but you do get stones like this. I am Tom Sawyering, if that's now a verb, because it's 50 degrees in February. Feels like I'm in North Carolina. So you do get, even with granite, some jagged pieces. And so this sort of stuff is absolutely going to need to be cushioned against the liner because we do not want problems in the future. This doesn't always work, but you can see how it's kind of concave on the bottom as though the water kind of eroded it away underneath. And it's also a low flat stone. And then you don't want to do that if that stone, let's say, had a kind of a cut in it underneath it. That's too angular to use as like a stone like that. And then also too, major stepping stone action, stepping stone potential to do that. That's a little unsteady, so I'm gonna have to fix that. Drop a comment down below if you're a seasoned water feature artist. What you do with these water features is you're going to kind of flip the liner back and forth, and then this spillway here gets hooked up last. So I just siliconed that into place, obviously before there was water, and that's going to just you don't technically need to, because this here on the outside is silicone and it's glued, so technically this is already watertight. But Aquascape folks like to, and Aquascape contractors like to kind of do things a little bit overkill, just to prevent any potential problems. But yeah, the pump is hooked up to this little ball fitting here. This absolutely will need to be taken off periodically for maintenance, and possibly if it gets super cold in the winter. So one of the things that I just did is I just went inside to check the viewing angles, which is really important. So here is kind of the same level as the house in one viewing angle, and then this right here, and keep in mind there's going to be some really nice large voluminous garden beds around this thing, because I personally hate having a water feature in this case butted up right against lawn. And the thing that I took away from going inside, which I wouldn't have otherwise, is this rock, which I spoke about earlier, has to be closer to the edge of the basin. So because it was kind of obscuring this waterfall a little bit. So all right guys, another little rock tip here. Originally I got this as like a corner piece to go kind of like where you see that, where it's a corner in the liner. But the more I look at it, that face is pretty boring, and I think these are not steel toes, by the way. Oh, that's actually nice. I actually think this rock is going to be nicer like this, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so this is going to be the frame rock for right here. That's going to be the main spillway coming out of the upper pool. And then what I need is rocks to naturalize the upper pool. I need some retaining wall stones, and then I also need some stones for wing walls here. Hey guys, just checking in here now. You can see that there's been pretty significant progress on the rock work. You can definitely, or I hope you can see kind of the water course, how this is going to be the origin pool, and it's going to kind of spread out thin and kind of just cascade into a little pool of water, maybe about like 2 or 3 inches deep right here. And then it's going to, the water, and then the water after it's gone out of that pool is going to condense along some portion of this rock, depending on if it's 2,000 gallons per hour or 4,000 or somewhere in between. And then all of that water is going to come spread out again and come gushing over this spillway. So this waterfall is not really a clean sheet. It's kind of like as though we're flowing along bedrock or something. And the thing that annoys me here is you can see the bottom of that rock. So I need to fix that, whether it's with slate, just tucking in little pieces of stone in that crevice, or maybe moss or even plants potentially. And then once it goes over this rock, which I did move slightly further out, might need to come even further out, it'll go on a little bit of bib liner, or in other words, liner that's over the top of the basin, and then it'll go into the basin, and then it'll go back up to the top, and that's why they call it a recirculating feature. I have a lot more stones like this, kind of just softball, baseball sized rocks. But the other thing that I need to mention too is little pockets like this. Little pockets like this are perfect for aquatic plants. So on another note, I might just fill this with more pea gravel and have that be a planting pocket. How cool would that be? The spillway is this piece right here. The more I do pondless waterfalls, the less I like these spillways, because I prefer what this back end of it has is basically an attached bulkhead. And so I just like eliminating this whole thing and having a bulkhead sunk down at the bottom of my upper pool, which I invariably create on every water feature. So the main difference here between this and a regular bulkhead is that this has 2 rubber gaskets instead of 1 plastic washer and another rubber gasket. So now I need to put my MPT, or my male pipe thread, into the fitting right here. And so this makes it a little more difficult to do on camera, but you know, it's pretty straightforward. You can see that black bead of fish safe silicone, which is made for ponds, and that is just adding a little bit of extra watertight goodness to these fittings, which is again, it's cheap insurance. Do you have to put silicone on every threaded fitting? I would, because if it's going out, if it's on the outside of the water, yeah, because it's just cheap insurance. Now this, I'm not gonna use the 460 channel locks, because I don't want this to be too tight. These fittings are all plastic, and I know a lot of people like to dog on plastic, and it will break. And so basically the finished, semi-finished result is gonna look like that. And so you can see that the silicone, I only put it on the very end, just 1 thick bead, as though you're doing a skimmer filter. I'm not doing this messiness on the threads, because you don't need to, and frankly, it also drives my OCD insane to see that. So 1 thick bead will thoroughly seal that whole thing, and then 2-inch flex PVC. And so this I'm going to glue into the fitting. But as you can see, this is not really gonna bend, so I have a 90 that I'll clean this off and put some pipe glue in there. I'm gonna come back to you guys once this has glue on it, because I can't set up my phone in some goofy angle live for you. So this is the elbow fitting. So you can see here that all I'm doing is putting on a nice semi-sloppy coat. You can see it's running down the pipe, so I do want to hurry it up a little bit here just so I actually have glue on the thing. So this fitting has glue on that side, so I am having it angled slightly upwards. I know you can't really see it from this angle, but I'll show you guys in a minute. But I'm currently setting another part of this pipe here, and so I need two hands. So I'm probably gonna like sing something for you guys, or just kidding. And then once this glue is set and cured, then you will be able to test run your waterfall. So you can see some dirt that's collecting in there, just loose, dry stuff, thankfully. I want to try to get out as much of that as possible. Glue needs to set in a clean tube. All right, so you can see that nice clean bead of blue glue on it. And basically you need to put some glue on the pipe itself, so the black pipe, and you need to put some obviously inside the fitting, so on both sides. And the other thing to keep in mind here, guys, is that you need to do this somewhat quickly. This glue will set or not cure, but it'll set in, usually around a minute is how much time I like to give it. And then again, I'm going to take that 90-degree fitting elbow and I'm gonna glue these two pieces together. Obviously, if you have this with an open end and that, which is attached to the pump, you're just gonna get a nice muddy mess. You'll notice that the liner is totally untrimmed, and that is for a reason. If you're doing this for the first time, just like using a spillway is good for the first time, which I didn't say that, then when you test run your water feature, you want to make sure that you haven't trimmed your liner, because basically you can't glue the liner back on. Once it's cut, it's cut. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to drop it a big ol' thumbs up, just like that. Just like the palm. And I'm also curious, drop a comment down below. Would you tackle this project yourself, or would you get help from an Aquascape contractor? Alright guys, see you on the next one. Peace!